Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. This video is something that's pretty different from the normal content that I create. In this video, we're just going to be living out my dystopian fantasy dream girl weekend, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm reading a lot of older backlist titles in this video. Well, I say a lot, I mean 3. Regardless, that's a lot of fantasy for me for someone who doesn't really read high fantasy. So let's go ahead and quickly talk about what you're going to be seeing from me in this video. The first book I'm going to talk about is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is the same author as A Sorcery of Thorns, which I haven't read. Maybe I'll get to it someday. In this book, we are following this magical portrait artist living obviously in this high fantasy world where she paints portraits of these immortal beings that crave human craft. One day her portrait painting goes wrong and she is kind of captured, whisked away as a repercussion of this bad experience that her subject has had while she's been doing his portrait. And something happens along the way where maybe they don't make it to their destination, they're gonna fall in love, they're gonna depend on each other for survival. It's a standalone. I can't wait. Next, I will be reading Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Hey there, lovelies. Editing me, chiming in. I realized as I was editing my intro that I gave you a completely botched synopsis for this. So insert me here in the place of what I said. This book is about our main girly pop mare. She is a commoner in this town. She is a red, and the entire nation, I guess, that she lived in is ruled by silvers. So there's a bunch of different kingdoms and palaces across the country. Pretty standard YA castle fantasy setup, right? Mare is pretty fed up with the world and the injustices of it, living as a commoner like she does. And one day, after a series of events, she is taken away to work in the palace for the silvers, whom she hates. There's kind of an underground resistance happening. We don't know a lot about it. The synopsis just mentions it briefly, so I thought that I should mention it as well. And she is warring with herself on who to trust. I'm sure there's lots of betrayal. I'm sure there's love, and she's gonna change the world by serving the resistance from the inside. At least I think that's what's gonna happen. That's the correct plot synopsis. Back to the intro. And the last book I'm reading, sorry I don't have a dust jacket for it, it is The Host by Stephanie Meyer. If you recently saw my 24 books I must read in 2024, this bad boy was on there. It is a chunky book. I have tried to read this many a time. I'm sorry, I don't really know why I'm holding it up. Is it better if I hold it up for you this way so you can see the spine? Each time I get about 200 pages in and then something comes up where I've just never had the opportunity to finish it. I do think that the writing is really fun and the story itself is also really exciting. So I'm gonna start listening to the audiobook. Actually, I already have. We'll talk about it in a second to get caught up to where I last left off, and then I will read the rest physically. In this one, we are following this alien kind of life form that gets inserted into different host bodies on different planets. This book happens to be set when our host is from planet Earth. So our soul, is what they're called, gets inserted to this human host body. Her name is Melanie, and they're kind of warring with each other about who is morally and ethically right about what's happening with the world. Melanie has a man that she is kind of in love with and her little brother that she's been separated from, and she wants to find them. The host, who is going by Wanderer in this book, that's her name, kind of fighting Melanie about it, but also kind of growing and seeing the maybe error of her kind's ways. And so far, that's exactly what the story is. I think I'm about 20% of the way through, and I think I need to be about 30% of the way through before I'm caught up. I don't think I said it yet, but this is the dystopian of this vlog. The other two are just high fantasy little fun stories. I am not a big dystopian sci-fi type of reader, but this book is doing something really special, and it has a lot of You're on camera. Are you really gonna fight? Anyway, it has a lot of nice societal commentary about moral ethics. I can't with her. You two are too much. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm excited to finally get it off my shelf. So my update so far, again, I've read probably like 200 pages of it audibly, previously physically. I'm just using the audiobook as a refresher, but that's still hardly any of the book itself. I believe it's like 800 pages long. Okay, 700 pages long. Can you just stop? Get down. I know, I'm so mean. This clip is turning out so much longer than I intended it to be because of this situation. I'm gonna let you know when I have an update on this, probably when I get caught up to where I last left off, and I will see you guys soon in the next clip. Let's get this rolling. Hello, it is nighttime now. I'm sure you can tell. I didn't know how I'd feel about this lighting, but I'm kind of vibing with it. I have reached the point where I last stopped reading the host in my audiobook. It was more like 40%. I thought it was like 30%. That was a lie. It was a good little refresher. I'm glad that I chose to do this through the audiobook. I think it just helped me cruise right through. I was able to do chores and stuff around the house today while I was getting caught up. And here's what I can tell you so far. I guess I could be holding up the book, but I think I'm just gonna put the cover for you on one of these sides of me because I don't have the dust jacket for the book, so I think it's gonna be more interesting for you to look at the actual book. This story has a really big undercurrent of like what is actually inherent good versus evil and human motives, which I think is so great. I love to see that in young adults. And honestly, the host reads like an adult. I think it's definitely on the older end of the YA spectrum, so I'm really appreciating that because I don't feel like things are being like dumbed down for me. I hate that in young adults. I also just love the internal warring of Wanderer and Melanie. They have such a funny relationship, and it's such an interesting concept to be pitched where they're both existing inside the same body. So I just wanted to pop on and tell you that it's going really well, and I'm so glad that I picked it back up and decided to read it for this video. I also want a moment for my Hello Kitty bedspread, please. It is Christmas themed. It is from Pottery Barn, and it was a Christmas gift from my mommy last year because I love Hello Kitty. Obviously, it was from Pottery Barn, so it was super freaking expensive. I just wanted it to have its moment of fame here before I officially put all of my Christmas stuff away. I love Christmas time, but I am not a let's leave the Christmas decorations up forever after Christmas girly pop. So this stuff is coming down later this week, and I will go back to my normal pink themed decor, which is my entire house. Y'all, I'm so excited. It is freezing outside. It is flash freezing right now. It was super warm this morning, and now it's like 15 degrees. And tonight it's supposed to be 15 below. The point is, I was supposed to go to work today, but we just canceled work. We're getting a snow day for work. That never ever happens. That's maybe happened once in the last 3 years because the roads are so bad because of the flash freeze and the snow and how cold it's supposed to get. So I have a free night to read, and I'm just so excited. I have read to about page 400-ish in the host. Also, sorry for this like terrible angle, but I'm on about page 400, and I'm starting to have some problems with it. The main problem is we just keep getting the same storyline over and over again. So our main girly pop, Melanie and Wanderer, question mark. They go to sleep, they wake up, they're like, oh my gosh, no one here likes me. They deal with the problems for the day, they go to sleep. They wake up, they're like, oh my gosh, no one here likes me. They do the thing, they deal with the problem, they go to sleep. I'm not loving that. Like, something needs to happen now. If we are 65% of the way through the book, some plot lines need to start developing. Like, I don't just want to read about them. Is this a spoiler? I'll edit this out if it's a spoiler. They need to do something. They need to go somewhere. They need to have a new problem introduced. I don't even know if I talked about that. Let's quickly backtrack. So the Seeker is essentially like Wanderer's handler, okay? And she wants to take Wanderer out of Melanie's body. This isn't a spoiler. This happens like pretty much from the get-go in the book, because obviously they know that Melanie is still kind of present in her body. Like her soul didn't completely die when Wanderer's soul got implanted into the host body. Anyway, the Seeker wants to take Wanderer out of Melanie's body, but Wanderer wants to stay in Melanie's body. We've just, for the past 200 pages, been reading the same storyline over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm gonna need the pace to pick up. I'm gonna need something to happen. The Seeker's still looking for her. It's causing some problems and some concern, but overall nothing's going on. So that's kind of the issue that I'm having. Obviously, we still have like 250 pages left. Something else can happen. I'm not sure what it's gonna be. I'm gonna go enjoy my snow day. I'm gonna finish the host. I'm gonna start reading Red Queen. I'm so excited. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the book, although I have been listening to it, but I decided that since I don't have to work today, I was gonna redo my entire room. So I reorganized my entire room. I'm gonna walk over to my door and then I'll show you what I did. I don't have before footage because my room was a mess before, but now it's clean and it's completely different. So let's take a little tour. Okay, so my house is really, really tiny. So my room is really, really tiny, but this is kind of what we're working with right now. This wall was where my bed used to be, so now it's really empty. I'm thinking I'm gonna get some shelves to put on there, and then I'll put some books on the shelves. Ignore my laundry room behind us. I decided we're making this bookish, so I have a book stack by my bed here that matches the color palette of the room. Most of these I haven't read. Some of them I have. They're all on the list to read this year. Yeah, this is what the room is looking like now. So anyway,
what do you think? Yeah.
Finally, the plot is taken off. Things are happening. 75% of the way through. Chapter 45, we're finally getting somewhere, thank goodness. That's all. I just wanted to let you know things are picking up now. I'm reinvested in the story. That's all. I'm gonna do a magic trick to start this clip. Ready? Behold, Tinkerbell. That wasn't really very good. You could see her ear poking out from the corner. It's late. I'm tired. It is the same day, but much later. I finished the host. I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I really liked the way that the end wrapped everything up. I thought that the epilogue was really good. That said, I'm just not a sci-fi lover. As hard as I try to be and as hard as I try to love dystopians, that's just not my thing. Also, in traditional Stephenie Meyer fashion, we obviously had that like 150 to 200 pages in the middle of the book where literally nothing happened, literally nothing. And we could have just cut out those pages, had a normal length book, and saved me between 2 and 4 hours of my life. Those are hours of my life I will never get back. I mentioned earlier that this book has a lot of discussion about what's good and what's evil, but I also think that this touches on us versus them mentality, which is kind of fun, and seeing the intricacies of that and seeing how obviously that's never really as simple as it seems. Without spoiling anything, because I think, again, because this is Stephenie Meyer, we can assume there's gonna be a love triangle. I approved of the way that it went. It went the way that I wanted it to go, and I didn't think it was, and then it was, and then it was just so good. And so props to her for doing that love triangle justice. Because I'm just feeling pretty mediocre about this, just middle of the road, I don't have a ton else to say about this book. However, I do have a lot to say about the Target Valentine's Day decor. Have you seen it? If you haven't, go look at it. It is so cute. I am a big holiday decor girly. There's like really cute, I'll put some pictures up on the screen for you. I wish that I could de-influence you from consumerism, but I can't because I am a victim myself. There are these cute little houses. There's a dog with a little heart. I think there's actually multiple dogs with little hearts. There's an Eiffel Tower with a heart. There's heart pillows. Like, there's just so many cute things going on. And I want to order some, or I want to drive myself into the city to Target and get some. The last thing I'm going to say in this clip, we're going back to the book now, is I am officially, finally unhauling the Host off my shelves. You'll see it in an unhaul video, which I will film when I have a certain number of books that I feel is appropriate to do that with. I'm going to start reading Red Queen tonight. I don't think I'll get far enough to tell you anything. If I do, you'll see me again in the same getup in 5 seconds. If not, I will see you tomorrow and we can chat about Red Queen. Okay, so it is the next day. It's Friday. I had my fingers crossed so hard that work would get canceled again today because obviously it's very freezing outside. Usually, if you don't live somewhere super cold, you probably aren't really aware of this, but usually if it's below 0, it doesn't snow very much. Like, it's pretty uncommon to have like a prolonged or heavy snow, but that's exactly what's been happening here. All the schools are canceled today, so I'm like, why is work not canceled? But alas, I do have to go to work in like 30 minutes. I'm crying a little bit about it, but it's okay. It's just so freaking cold outside and I just want to sit and read this. I am on chapter 7, which is about 75 pages in, and I really like this. I'm having so much fun. I find Mare's little like sidekick friend, who I'm sure is going to be part of like a love triangle later on in the book, or if he's not, he's going to be like problematic or ties to her past, whatever, in some type of way. I'm finding him really annoying and I don't like him. I think that I'm supposed to like him and feel sympathy for him, but I find him annoying. Mare, on the other hand, is a really fun main character to read from. She's this little like pickpocketing, rebelling in the small ways type of girly, and she has just got kind of courted into the palace by someone. I won't say who because I think that might be a spoiler. So she's just arrived at the palace and she's working in the palace with these people that she is super jealous of and just hateful and spiteful of. She's overhearing so many conversations of them like complaining, and she's like, what do you have to complain about? It's pretty standard plot-wise, like pretty much exactly what I was expecting. The writing is just so good, and I think that that is the reason why I don't typically love stories like this, is because there's a lot of them out there, but not very many of them have great writing like this one does. I'm so enthralled in the story, and I'm having so much fun. Like, I low-key right now, I mean, I know I've only read the first, like, not even quarter yet, but this could, like, be a 5-star. Which is the plot twist of the century in my life. So I've just reached page 140, and Mare is being the most not like other girls girl that I think I've ever read. Her line on this page, and I quote, is, "Not like me, I'm not like anyone." I'm going to make a comprehensive list of tropes to share with you at the end of finishing this book, but this one is just so blaringly obvious that I had to share. Hey, first of all, ignore my hair. It is so beyond staticky in my home that you would not even understand. Literally every time I even walk, there's just static crackling through the air because of how cold and dry it is outside. There's just nothing I can do to control this today. I don't have to go anywhere, so I'm not putting forth any effort. It's just gonna look like this. Don't look at this side of my head. Okay, couple quick things that I didn't realize about this that I just wanted to share before we talk about my update. This was a Goodreads Choice winner in 2015, and I didn't know that. But obviously a lot of people liked it, which we already knew. But also this has above a 4-star. I think it has like a 4.2 or 4.02, I mean, on Goodreads, which is pretty rare for a book that has close to or over 1 million ratings. Like, that's pretty unheard of. So obviously people are out here eating this up. We've just had our first betrayal in the story. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I thought that the first betrayal was going to happen earlier, to be honest with you, and I'm kind of disappointed that it took this long. I believe that we're like supposed to be inclined to believe that there's a love triangle, or maybe it's supposed to be a love square happening in here. I feel like that's trying to happen, but it's not really doing a very good job because Mare is not having really any chemistry with any of the love interests in here, but I feel like we're supposed to feel like that's what's happening, but I don't feel like that's happening because I'm not seeing any sparks flying between any of the men in this book. I'm still really liking it. This is a really fun story. It's super fast paced. So much is going on. I don't know exactly where I left off when I was talking about this to you last, but basically Mare finds out that she's like not like other girls, right? Like there's something really special about her, but I'm not going to say what because I don't want to spoil it. The palace also is aware that this thing has happened to her, so she gets betrothed to the younger of the two princes, who obviously she doesn't know and she hates because he's a silver, right? I think he's supposed to be part of the love square, but it's not, the chemistry's not flying there. Maybe it will later in the book, I don't know. That is not a spoiler, that is mentioned in the synopsis. It says, to hide the impossibility, the king forces her into the role of a lost silver princess and betroths her to one of his own sons. Anyway, the rebel forces are doing their thing. This is kind of reminding me of the Hunger Games, but just set in a palace. Not so much like the actual games part of the Hunger Games, but like in Mockingjay, how Katniss is the face of the rebellion and blah, 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 blah. Mare's realizing that she can be the face of the rebellion of the common folk against the silvers, because obviously she is common folk, but she's pretending to be a silver because she has to so she doesn't get killed, right? There's just so much going on. So I'm still intrigued. I'm still enjoying it. This is a great book to curl up with for my frozen, very cold weekend. I think we had a record cold day yesterday, the second lowest temperature ever recorded in my town in the history of ever. It was negative 36 degrees. So this update has absolutely nothing to do with the book, but my mom just went to the store and she offered to pick up any groceries for me that I might need so that I don't have to go to the store today. Bless her for going out in this cold and just being the most wonderful mom ever. If you're watching this, Mom, thanks. I love you. And she just brought me this Christmas gift that she forgot to give me on Christmas, and I just want to cry. It has all my favorite candy in it. I'm gonna pan out to it in just a second because it's so like pretty that I don't even want to take it apart, but she's just so crafty and I feel like this should be appreciated because she just did so good. Okay, so here it is getting its moment of justice. Is this not the cutest thing you've ever seen? I kind of just want to cry. It's beautiful. I don't want to take it apart. I'm at a loss for words. Hello, I have finished Red Queen. Let's talk about it. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I thought that this was so fun, and I had so much more fun reading it than I expected to have. And as promised, I have compiled a very long list of tropes to discuss with you, which we will get onto in just a moment here. First of all, I thought we could just go over some of the things that I really liked about this. It was super fast-paced. There was so much action. I thought the magic in here was really fun. Sorry if there's noise. The cats are playing because they're always calm until I decide to film. It's just the way of the world. So when there was about 100 pages left of the book, the betrayals just came on full force. There was so much going on, I could barely even keep up. I don't want to say there's anything that really shocked me in here. It kind of went in the direction that I was expecting, as most young adult fantasy does, but I just thought, even though it wasn't shocking, it was still done in a really fun way, and I just had so much fun reading it. I thought that this was such a perfect book to curl up with for the weekend, and I'm so happy that I finally read this. It's definitely one I'll be keeping on my shelves. Will I be reading the rest of the series? It's not a priority, but like if I need an audiobook when none of my holds are coming through, or if I'm just at a loss for what to read, I would be so happy to pick the next one up, although the reviews and the ratings of the book significantly drop with the series, and the books get longer and longer as the series progresses. I've looked into it a little bit, so definitely not a top priority of mine, but not something I am opposed to either. I'm gonna set this here so you can still look at it. We're gonna get into some of the problems that I had with this, and then we'll talk about my list of tropes. Problem number 1 is the Silvers had this insane amount of like innovative technology, right? They had these really innovative modes of transportation, cameras throughout the palace and the summer home and all of the different places. Obviously they have magic as well, right? But they don't have phones. Like, you're telling me that they have all of this stuff, but the only way they communicate with each other is through letters? Okay. that was a choice that the author made. I don't really know how I feel about that. Does it make sense? Not really. I already kind of discussed this, but I felt like we were trying to have a love triangle or a love square. I wasn't really sure how many love interests we're supposed to have. And I just wasn't really convinced that she could be interested in any of them. And I didn't really want her to be with any of the boys in this book. They all have like irritating qualities, and I just wasn't really into any of it. And I'm not actually sure who she was supposed to be interested in and who she was not supposed to be interested in. And that was confusing to me. I felt like we just didn't need to add in a love shape of some sort into this, because I still don't really know what the shape was supposed to be. She kisses multiple people, but then it's kind of just like brushed off and it's like not really that relevant. But then suddenly we're claiming that like certain people love her, and I'm like, wait. Problem number 3 was that I was promised loads of betrayal, and yes, that happened at the end of the book. But why did we wait until the last 100 pages to start inserting betrayals left and right? Like, why couldn't we have just spread them out a little bit more and use them as an additional plot device to move the story along? I felt like that would have been a little better suited, rather than just bombarding me at the end with like betrayal after betrayal. Like every page that I turned was someone else betraying someone else, and it was just a lot for me. This is a personal issue that I don't think everyone will have, but it's an issue that I had. So Mare's best friend, Kilorn, from her like red life, he's not a friend from the palace, like it's from her past life. I know that I was supposed to like him, but I just really didn't. Like, I just found him super annoying and inconvenient, and he was just there to serve as a plot device for like Mare to really care about her past life and like want to protect someone. And I just felt like he wasn't needed, and he irritated me a lot, and he just keeps popping up at random times in the story, and I just didn't appreciate that. This is an unpopular opinion, and I don't really think that it's a spoiler, but if you don't want to hear this, because I guess it could be considered a mild spoiler, skip ahead until you see me start listing tropes on the screen, and you can just not listen to this part. But I feel like with all of the war and like the presence of death and the good and the evil, I feel like we should have had someone die that was impactful, right? Like, I feel like we should have had a really impactful, sad death in this story. And while yes, some people that Mare cares about die, they're not anyone that's super close to the inner circle. They're not anything that would really pull in our heartstrings. And I felt like if we're gonna be making a statement about this rebellion and this constant war and like people fighting for the cause, we needed to have an impactful death in this first book, or even an impactful death that like maybe wasn't a death, but maybe was a death, and we would find out in the next book. Like, I feel like we needed that to happen, and it didn't happen. Okay, now we can move on to tropes. I will kindly put them on the screen for you. Trope number 1, Mare is not like other girls. We already discussed this. She's an outcast in the Silver Palace, obviously, because she's a red, but she's forced to pretend to be a silver. She hates them, but she has to endure this for the greater good. She doesn't want to die. You get the idea. Not like other girls is in every fantasy, so are we really surprised about this one? No, we're not. And it was done in a way that wasn't super annoying. It wasn't constantly like throwing in our face that she's not like other girls after that one line that I talked to you about in a previous clip where she straight out says, "I'm not like other girls." Trope number 2, she only has one friend in her previous life, which is Kilorn, who is the most annoying character ever. I always find like these my life before friends just irritating. Like, even in the Hunger Games, I found Gale to just be really annoying, and I just didn't want him in the story because I just didn't care about him. And again, it kind of seems like we want to maybe have Kilorn in the love triangle, square situation, rectangle, trapezoid, whatever you want to call it, but I don't know if we actually do. Does she love him platonically, or does she love him as more than friends? I'm not sure, because we didn't really ever touch on that. So like, what was the point of him being in the story? And he was just weird and strange, and the friend from before is always another outcast, and I just find that kind of annoying, but it's whatever. Okay, trope number 3, everyone in her family that cares about her is away at war and in danger. She's an outcast within her family. Like, she doesn't really feel like her parents love her, and her brothers that do love her are not present in the story because they're away at war. And so she's just being a sad girly because she feels like no one in her family loves her except those that she doesn't have access to. Again, pretty standard trope. Next, speaking of war, that's another really common trope in fantasy. There's a war between the common folk and the royalty, and it's really bloody and gruesome and seemingly pointless, which again is every war in a fantasy. It's been dragging on for years and years, and they need a rebellion to quash this war and move on to a better, brighter future. Next trope kind of goes back to being Mare is not like other girls, but in this case, Mare is also the chosen one, right? Without spoiling anything, she can do things that no one else can do. She's special, right? And so that means that she is the chosen one to fight this war, fight this rebellion. She's the face of the rebellion, and everything in the entire world and the success of the future or failure of the future relies on her being the face of this new movement. We've already talked about the love shape. We don't know what shape it is, but can we have a YA fantasy without a love shape? I'm truly not sure. So whatever the shape ends up being, it's in there. Okay, this is my favorite trope of pretty much the whole book. It just always cracks me up, and I feel like it's never really discussed because it's like this tiny little thing, but it's so inherent to YA fantasy, and I want to be the one to address this for you. Mare, whenever she gets overwhelmed, just like spontaneously runs off through the castle as if that's gonna solve all of her problems, as if just running down the castle halls, a portal will open into another world that she can jump through, but of course it never does, and running never gets her anywhere, and she always has to be comforted by the prince or gets caught by the guards or whatever. So I took pictures of every single time in the text that Mare ran away. I would like to have a moment of silence for those now. I will pop them on the screen for you. Yes. Okay, hopefully that was enough time. Next, always in a YA fantasy, is there a dance or a ball or a gala where everything goes horribly wrong and an attack happens or someone dies or is some secrets revealed, and this was no different. There was absolutely a ball where things went terribly wrong. Again, a small thing, but it's always in there. And the last one, which again I've already touched on, but there are multiple conflicts in this where people are getting shot and none of the good guys ever die. And none of the bad guys really die either. Like who is dying? Who is getting shot? What is happening if no one that we actually care about and know in the story is getting shot? Like it's just random people. We need an impactful death. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so with that, I know I kind of just bashed on this a lot, but it was really interesting and I had a really good fun time reading it. Again, 4 stars overall. Let's go ahead and get on to An Enchantment of Ravens. I haven't started reading it yet. I will update you when I see you next to tell you how that's going, okay? Okay. I have finished the first 30% of An Enchantment of Ravens this morning. I'm not sure when I decided I was only wearing pink in this video, but that's what's happening. I'm really liking the book so far. This is my first Margaret Rogerson, and I am pleasantly surprised. I'm having a really fun time. Backtracking really quickly to Red Queen, I saw this TikTok where Victoria Aveyard was talking about the ages that she was at when she wrote all of her books, and she wrote Red Queen when she was 21. So she was younger than me, and that's really putting in perspective, like, what am I doing with my life? I'm not sure, because she was out there writing an international bestseller to one of the most prominent fantasy series of that decade. So good for her. Anyway, let's talk about An Enchantment of Ravens. I've already given you the plot synopsis, but quick reminder, Isabel's a portrait artist. She paints portraits for the fae creatures of her world, and they kind of are these beings that really crave craft, any form of arts, but also simpler things as well, like baking or anything like that that maybe we wouldn't traditionally view as a craft. She's painting a portrait of the Autumn Court Prince one day, and she finishes it and she sends it to his realm, and he unveils it, and it is not what he thought it was gonna be. So he comes back and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. What did you do to my portrait? You changed it since the last time I saw it. And she's like, oh shoot, I put some like human-esque qualities, human-esque emotions into this portrait that I probably shouldn't have. So she tells him, because she's feeling fear for her life, that she can go and she can fix it for him. The Fae in this book are really fun. They, again, are known as the Fair Ones, and they are Fae beings, which are different than their outward presentation. They choose to present themselves as these really beautiful, flawless, perfect humans. And maybe there's a little like chemistry flowing between Mr. Autumn Prince and Isabel. So he's pretty upset with her, but they're still having a fun banter, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna take you back. We're gonna go back to my kingdom. You're gonna fix my portrait because you have wronged me. So she's like, okay, sounds good. So they go off on this adventure through this magical forest. They're encountering lots of like mystical beasts, mystical creatures, and obviously ravens are playing a big role in this story. She gets paid in enchantments for her portraiture, and the enchantment that she's received from the prince for her payment is that she will see certain numbers of ravens for different omens of danger or death that lie ahead or near. But yeah, the characters are having a great banter. I think that I definitely see the sparks flying in between them, so I'm really grateful for that, because I hate a fantasy where we're just expected that the characters are gonna love each other and we never actually see any chemistry. I like this little aspect of romance. It's not the center of the story though. The quest and the journey to get there right now is. We're also just kind of trying to learn about what plagues our Autumn Prince. He has these very sorrowful eyes, and Isabel's trying to figure out like what has plagued him in this life to make him take on this humanesque quality. Definitely a lot different than the traditional YA fantasy quest story so far, because our girly is in fact like all the other human girlies, and she is in fact not magical. So I'm really appreciating that, because we can still go on this story, just have a normal character. Like, she just likes her paint and that's it. So I'm really appreciating that as well. It's such a nice change of pace from the I'm the only one who can save this entire world. Okay, hi. It's the same day but much later. Ignore the giant pimples on my face. The air is so dry that it's just drying my skin right out, and the acne is just popping up all over the place. That is not what we're here to talk about. I am 75% of the way through the book, and we have just arrived at our masquerade ball scene where things are going terribly wrong, because like I said in a previous clip, we cannot have a young adult fantasy without a masquerade ball, and we cannot have a masquerade ball without things going terribly wrong. So that's exactly what's happening right now. But it's interesting. I'm liking the way that things are going terribly wrong. Definitely an individual, very fitting for this magic world-esque type of conflict. And I'm just appreciating that we're really sticking to the theme. There have been so many beautiful, vivid, sometimes kind of terrifying pictures painted in my head reading this writing. I think that Margaret Rogerson is doing a great job narrating her story. I'm having so much fun. There's a really interesting commentary kind of running through about the value of mortality, which I mean we can expect in a book where there are immortal creatures, but also the value of the simplicity of like human craft and capabilities. And I'm just really loving those themes kind of running throughout it. I feel like those are things that I don't see. Well, the immortality debate, yes, but the value of human art, no, I don't see that very often in any fantasy or any books that I really read. Yes, we talk about the value of artistic creation. I think the commentary running through this particular story is more centric on like even simple human crafts, like cooking dinner or sitting down and sketching something with really like rudimentary materials, finger painting, like things that literally anyone can do that maybe make up so much more about who we are than we realize. And I just really appreciate a theme like that that makes you like think about those things, right? I don't really want to say anything else about the plot because I don't want to spoil anything, and I feel like anything I say at this point will kind of give away where this is gonna go. So I'm gonna leave that alone, and I'm gonna finish the book now, okay? But I just wanted to check in with you because I feel like it's weird if I go from 33% to the end of the book and I just didn't say anything in the middle. So I'll see you when I'm done. Hello, my lovely friends. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's been a couple days, but I did finish an Enchantment of Ravens this morning, and it was so fun. It was so good. It was like pretty basic overall, and I think I've said that multiple times now. I don't really have a ton more to share with you, actually. I'm gonna give it a 4-star, more like a 3.75, but we're gonna round it up because that's close enough. I really enjoyed the like uniqueness of the aspects of this story, but overall it followed a pretty basic like fantasy storyline, so nothing super impressive there, but like I appreciated that it owned up that that's what it was trying to be, and that's all it was, and it didn't try to do anything special. It didn't try to be a drawn out series. It just like was what it was as a standalone fantasy, and I think that's great. I'm sure you've noticed if you've been on my channel for a while that I don't really ever read fantasy, and I think part of it is because I like don't care about reading series. Like that sounds bad, but like I am not a series reader girly. I know the draw for most people with series is that they get to be with their favorite characters for multiple books, right? But that's not something that I like. Like I don't want to read about the same character for 5 books in a row. So I don't invest in fantasy very often because most fantasy books out there are series. So if you have any standalone fantasy recommendations, please drop them in the comments, because it's not that I like hate fantasy as a genre. It's just that I don't want to commit to that. Like I want to read one and be done. This is definitely not my last Margaret Rogerson book. I will be picking up A Sorcery of Thorns. I actually already put a hold on it for my library, and I actually have an arc of Vespertine, which she released like 2 years ago now, and I haven't read it, and I feel so bad. I probably could have read that for this video instead, but I have a different plan for that, so I will be reading it this year. On a side note, the reason that it took me so long to finish this wasn't because I wasn't enjoying it, it's because I was watching The Bear, okay? I didn't think it was gonna be a TV show that was for me. I actually love like high fantasy TV shows. I love Game of Thrones, like all of that is like my vibe for watching TV. But this week, The Bear won a bunch of Emmys, and so I was like, okay, you know what? I worked in a restaurant for years and years. If anything, I'll just be able to relate to the characters. And it is so good. If you haven't watched it, go watch it right now. I was blown away. I watched the whole 2 seasons in like 3 days, and I didn't read anything during those 3 days. I just watched the show. There is this one scene in the first season where they're like opening up their web orders, and someone forgot to turn off the pre-orders the night before, so they like go in for work and they like open up the system thinking that they're just opening it, when in fact it's been open the whole like morning, and they have like 200 pre-orders. And I worked in a restaurant where we had a very similar thing happen like pretty regularly, and the tickets just keep printing, and I was like, man, I feel that in my soul. Like I was cracking up. So if you've like waitressed, been a chef, worked in a kitchen, I think you'll love it. And just I think anyone would love it. Honestly, it's a really good show. It's really solid. I think it definitely deserved the awards that it won. Anyway, I'm obviously feeling really talkative, but this vlog is now over. If you have those high fantasy standalone recommendations, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me during this video, and I'll see you in another one soon. Bye.